In modern psychology, respect is viewed as a core element of healthy relationships, promoting trust, empathy, and emotional safety. Buddhism deepens this understanding by emphasizing interdependence and compassion, showing that respect is not merely an external behavior but a reflection of inner harmony. When harmful habits take root, they not only harm relationships but also erode our mental well-being. From a psychological perspective, these behaviors often stem from unresolved insecurities, emotional dysregulation, or maladaptive coping mechanisms. From a Buddhist lens, they are manifestations of the three poisons: greed, anger, and delusion. By combining the insights of psychology and Buddhist teachings, we can better understand the root causes of these habits and find practical, transformative solutions. Habit 1: Gossiping. Speaking ill of others is a common habit that carries profound negative consequences when examined through both modern psychology and Buddhist teachings. Psychology identifies this behavior as often stemming from social needs, building connections, or asserting oneself within a group. Sharing negative information about others can temporarily strengthen a sense of closeness or individual status in a group. However, the long-term consequences include a breakdown of trust and a tarnished reputation. Those who gossip frequently are not only perceived as unreliable but also undermine their own self-esteem. They often experience a sense of emptiness and insecurity, as such behavior neither builds genuine connections nor fulfills deeper emotional needs. From a Buddhist perspective, speaking ill of others reflects ignorance and self-centered desire, both of which are tied to an ego-driven existence. This behavior not only generates negative karma but also intensifies division between us and them, perpetuating separations and animosities within the mind. The Buddha teaches about right speech, one of the Eightfold Paths in the Noble Eightfold Path, as a means to foster harmony and liberation. Words that are untruthful or harmful bring suffering not only to the person being spoken about, but also to the speaker. Cultivating mindfulness in speech is a way to nurture compassion, understanding, and harmonious relationships. The root causes of speaking ill often arise from two key factors. The first is insecurity, where an individual feels inadequate or unacknowledged. They use the act of demeaning others as a way to momentarily feel superior or more important. However, this only provides short-lived gratification, while the underlying insecurity remains unaddressed. The second factor is emotional dysregulation, where individuals struggle to manage their negative emotions. Instead of confronting their fears, anger, or pain, they project these feelings onto others through harmful speech. To transform this habit, we can integrate modern psychological techniques with Buddhist practices. The first step is practicing right speech, which involves pausing and reflecting before speaking. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say true, necessary, and beneficial? This simple question fosters self-regulation and reduces impulsivity in communication. Second, practicing self-compassion and mindfulness is essential for nurturing self-esteem. Positive affirmations and awareness of one's intrinsic value can lessen the need for external validation. When you feel complete and at peace within, the urge to harm others through speech diminishes. Finally, from a psychological perspective, positive techniques can help replace gossiping with constructive behaviors. Focus on expressing gratitude or admiration for others instead. By recognizing positive qualities rather than flaws, you not only create positive energy in relationships but also train yourself to adopt a more optimistic view of the world. The combination of psychology and Buddhism reveals that speaking ill is not merely a superficial habit but a deep reflection of one's psychological and spiritual state. Transforming this behavior not only improves relationships but also serves as a path to inner peace and liberation. Habit 2: Being unreliable. Psychological perspective. Being unreliable is not a natural habit, but rather the result of unchecked actions, thoughts, and emotions. One of the main causes of unreliability is overcommitment without careful consideration, fear of confrontation, or procrastination. According to cognitive behavioral theory, this behavior can be linked to avoidance patterns, where we try to avoid uncomfortable feelings instead of facing them. For instance, someone might say yes to many commitments even though they know they don't have enough time or energy to fulfill them, simply because they fear disappointing others or don't want to face the discomfort of saying no. However, this leads to a much more serious consequence: unreliability. When you fail to keep promises or commitments, trust in relationships gradually erodes, and over time, it can lead to feelings of guilt, reduced self-worth, and harm to the relationships themselves. Buddhist perspective. Buddhism teaches us that our lives must be grounded in mindfulness and responsibility, sammakamanta. Unreliability is not just about breaking promises, it also shows a lack of awareness and respect for others, particularly their time and energy. When we fail to honor our commitments, we not only disrupt the harmony in relationships, but also accumulate negative karma. Buddhism encourages us to be careful with our speech and actions, as they can bring suffering not only to ourselves, but also to those around us. Every act of irresponsibility negatively impacts relationships and ourselves. Therefore, we need to be fully aware of the long-term consequences of being unreliable. There are two main causes that lead to unreliability. The first is avoidance behavior, where an individual fears failure, rejection, or their own imperfection. They avoid responsibility or commitments because they are worried about not doing them well or fear that they won't receive acknowledgement from others. This fear often leads them to avoid commitments altogether. The second cause is impulsivity, where people act without fully considering the consequences of their decisions. They might agree to many requests without realizing the long-term impact this has on relationships and their own well-being. When we don't pause to think things through, we're more likely to make mistakes in assessing our own abilities and committing to things beyond our capacity. To transform this habit, one effective approach is to develop self-regulation techniques. This can be achieved through mindfulness meditation, which helps you become more aware of your emotions and recognize the triggers that lead to avoidance or overcommitment. When you become more self-aware, you will find it easier to face discomfort instead of avoiding it. In addition, practicing responsibility is a crucial step. You can use psychological tools like habit tracking, creating clear commitment plans, and using accountability devices to stay focused and responsible for the commitments you make. These actions will help you improve your reliability in the eyes of others. Finally, one of the most important methods to change this behavior is compassionate reflection. Ask yourself how your actions affect others. When you think about the impact of your behavior on those around you, you will cultivate greater empathy and a stronger sense of responsibility for your relationships. This not only helps you keep promises, but also helps you build deeper, more sustainable connections with others. Habit 3: interrupting others. Psychological perspective. Interrupting others often reflects deeper emotional dynamics like impatience, overconfidence, or anxiety. From a psychological standpoint, people who frequently interrupt tend to struggle with tolerating silence or ambiguity in conversations. They may feel compelled to take control of the discussion, fearing that if they don't speak immediately, their point will be lost or they won't be heard. This reaction often stems from an underlying anxiety, especially in situations where individuals feel insecure or unimportant. Interrupting becomes a way of asserting control, but this behavior usually backfires. It can alienate others, making them feel disrespected and unvalued, and it hinders the development of meaningful connections. Over time, habitual interrupting can erode relationships, as it conveys a lack of interest in what others have to say and a disregard for their perspectives. Buddhist perspective. From a Buddhist perspective, interrupting is seen as a reflection of a lack of mindfulness and presence in the moment. Thich Nhat Hanh, a renowned Buddhist monk, emphasizes that deep listening is an act of compassion. To listen deeply is to truly hear someone, allowing them to feel seen and understood. In contrast, interrupting disrupts this flow of communication. It reflects attachment to one's own views and ego, as the person interrupting is more concerned with asserting their opinion than with understanding the other person. Buddhist teachings often highlight the importance of letting go of ego and practicing patience in conversations. Interrupting is a sign of attachment to the self. Our desires to be heard or validated often overshadow our ability to listen mindfully. There are two key psychological causes behind the habit of interrupting: ego-driven behavior and anxiety. Ego-driven behavior is when a person feels the need to assert their opinion or control the flow of the conversation. This behavior often comes from an unconscious belief that one's perspective is more important than others. It can also stem from the desire to be seen as knowledgeable or to dominate the conversation. Anxiety is another common trigger. People who are anxious about being overlooked or misunderstood may interrupt to ensure their voice is heard. Their fear of being ignored often compels them to speak over others, disregarding the natural rhythm of the conversation. To break the habit of interrupting, both psychological techniques and Buddhist practices offer valuable tools for change. The first step is to develop mindful listening practices. Mindful listening means giving your full attention to the speaker, not only hearing their words, but also tuning into the emotions behind them. It involves engaging in active listening, where you focus completely on the speaker without immediately planning your response. This practice helps to create space for the other person to express themselves, reducing the urge to interrupt. Another powerful tool is practicing emotional awareness through mindfulness. By cultivating awareness of your emotions in the moment, you can identify when impatience or anxiety is driving your desire to interrupt. Recognizing these feelings allows you to pause and reflect before speaking, giving the other person the opportunity to finish their thoughts. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to manage these emotions and prevents them from taking over during conversations. Finally, meditation on compassion, metta bhavana, can be an effective practice to reduce the ego-driven impulses that lead to interruptions. Metta bhavana, or the cultivation of loving kindness, encourages us to develop feelings of goodwill and compassion towards others. When we practice this form of meditation, we learn to put ourselves in others' shoes and value their words and perspectives. As we become more compassionate, we begin to let go of the need to dominate conversations, allowing for deeper, more respectful communication. Interrupting others is more than just poor etiquette, it is a reflection of deeper psychological and emotional patterns. From a psychological perspective, it often stems from anxiety or ego-driven behavior, while from a Buddhist perspective, it is a sign of a lack of mindfulness and attachment to the self. By practicing mindful listening, emotional awareness, and compassion, we can transform this habit into one that fosters connection, understanding, and respect. The next time you feel the urge to interrupt, take a moment to pause, breathe, and allow the other person to speak fully. This simple act not only improves communication, but also cultivates the kind of compassionate presence that deepens relationships and enriches our lives. Habit 4. Complaining. Psychological perspective. Complaining is not just a simple expression of dissatisfaction, it is a cognitive distortion that amplifies negativity and blinds us to potential solutions. Chronic complaining is often linked to learned helplessness, a state where individuals feel incapable of influencing outcomes and become passive in the face of challenges. This behavior not only affects mental well-being but also strains relationships. Constant complaining keeps our minds fixated on problems, making it difficult to see opportunities for improvement. Over time, this creates a negative feedback loop, reinforcing feelings of helplessness and frustration. Buddhist perspective. From a Buddhist perspective, complaining reflects attachment to aversion and dissatisfaction. The Buddha teaches that suffering arises from resisting reality. When we focus on what is wrong instead of accepting things as they are, we create more suffering for ourselves. Instead of complaining about what is not right, Buddhism encourages us to cultivate gratitude and focus on what we can control, samma sakkappa. By shifting our attention to what we can positively influence, we begin to transform our relationship with life and find peace in accepting the present moment. Root cause analysis. There are two primary causes behind the habit of complaining. Negative cognitive bias, a tendency to focus on problems rather than solutions. This cognitive bias keeps us stuck in negative thought patterns, making it difficult to find constructive ways to address challenges. Habitual patterns. Complaining becomes a habit when we repeatedly engage in it. Over time, it becomes an automatic response to situations, reinforcing negativity and preventing us from moving forward. Transformative approach. To transform the habit of complaining. Both psychological techniques and Buddhist practices can offer valuable tools. Gratitude practices. One of the simplest and most effective ways to shift focus from problems to positives is through gratitude journaling. Writing down things we are grateful for each day helps to increase our awareness of the good things in our lives, making it easier to appreciate what we have rather than focusing on what is missing. Solution-focused thinking. Instead of dwelling on problems, we can practice cognitive reframing, which involves identifying actionable steps to address challenges rather than just complaining about them. This helps us break free from negative thinking and take proactive steps toward improvement. Mindful acceptance. Mindfulness meditation can help us observe negative thoughts without attaching to them. When we stop clinging to dissatisfaction and allow ourselves to accept reality as it is, we develop greater inner peace and resilience in the face of challenges. Integrative insights. Modern psychology meets Buddhist philosophy. By merging modern psychology and Buddhist teachings, we gain a deeper understanding of these harmful habits and how to transform them. While psychology helps identify the cognitive and emotional patterns driving these behaviors, Buddhism offers powerful tools for cultivating mindfulness, compassion, and inner peace. General steps for transformation. 1. Awareness. Recognize the habit through mindful observation. 2. Root cause exploration. Use self-reflection and psychological tools to understand the underlying emotions or cognitive patterns. 3. Compassionate action. Apply Buddhist principles like loving-kindness, metta, and skillful effort, samavayama, to take intentional steps towards change. 4. Behavioral change. Use practical psychological strategies like habit tracking, gratitude journaling, and cognitive reframing to sustain transformation. Complaining is a habit that can harm relationships and reduce the quality of life. However, through the development of gratitude, solution-focused thinking, and mindful acceptance, we can transform this habit. The integration of modern psychology and Buddhist philosophy not only helps us recognize these harmful patterns, but also provides powerful tools to change them, leading to a happier and more peaceful life. Through the 4 habits: gossiping, being unreliable, interrupting others, and complaining, we've seen that our actions not only affect our relationships with others, but also have a profound impact on mental health and inner peace. By identifying the root causes and applying transformative methods such as mindfulness, compassion, and positive thinking, we can create a more harmonious and healthier life. Let's start practicing small steps to change these bad habits and build a better version of ourselves. When modern psychology and Buddhist teachings come together, they offer a roadmap for a life rooted in awareness, compassion, and positive transformation. Let us walk this path to cultivate respect, peace, and wisdom in every interaction. If you feel these habits are affecting your life, don't hesitate to embark on the journey of change today. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on other helpful videos that can aid in your personal growth. Share your story in the comments below. And let's learn and support each other on the path to inner peace and happiness.